The Star Wars sequels are some of the most divisive films of all time, and have split the Star Wars fandom in a drastic way. And with a call to erase or retcon the sequels gaining momentum over the past few months, I decided to put a poll out on YouTube and I asked you guys to tell me what you think. And in today's video, we are going to be going over some of the reasons that you guys gave as to why the Star Wars sequels should or should not be erased from the Star Wars canon timeline. But before we get started, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more Star Wars content. Now, let's get into today's video. So, starting off with the more popular option, and I mean more popular by far, I was actually really surprised at how many people wanted the sequels erased or retconned than those who, didn't care or wanted them to stick around. So, why should the sequels be erased? Now, I'm not going to be talking about any political messages or social justice issues that may or may not have been in these movies. Alright, this isn't a political channel, it is a Star Wars channel. So we will be looking at these things from simply a lore and movie and storytelling and fandom standpoint. Okay, so obviously the biggest glaring problem that everyone seems to have with the sequels, or one of the biggest, is Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker was poorly treated in this concluding trilogy, and understandably that made several fans, including myself, very uneasy. I mean, he was this symbol of hope and optimism and then turned into an old hermit? I mean, what could cause him to do this? On the side, I'm actually working on a little theory video about why this happened, but that will be another video. I mean, for literal decades, we were waiting to see Luke on the big screen again. I mean, the one thing that I wanted to see was the Jedi Master, fully trained, green lightsaber in hand, ready to take on the role that Obi-Wan and Yoda had for him. I wanted to see Luke in his Jedi Prime. I wanted to see him like how we saw him in The Mandalorian. I mean, to be honest, that's why everyone had the reaction that they did, because it was awesome. But instead, we got this guy who just gave up. I mean, he was literally wanting the Jedi to end. How boring would Star Wars be without the Jedi? Anyway, we wanted a Jedi Master, and instead, we got a cranky old hermit. I mean, wasted opportunity. Palpatine, or Darth Sidious, coming back was also another glaring problem in the sequel trilogy. I mean, not only did they lie to us and say that it was always part of the plan for Palpatine to return, but bringing him back put the legitimacy of Anakin Skywalker as the Chosen One in question. I mean, in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, the Sith were defeated, and they should have stayed that way. I mean, who's to stop Palpatine from coming back again? If he did it once before, he can do it again. The Hyperspace Bomb, or the Holdo maneuver, was another thing that actually shattered the lore. Now, it looked amazing. I mean, it blew me away when I saw it, and it was incredibly cinematic, but after the dust settled, I was like, wait, that was the stupidest thing ever. Why haven't they done that before? I mean, imagine how many lives could have been saved if they just sent a ship straight into the Death Star at light speed. Or how many battles could have been won with zero casualties if they just sent lightspeed missiles at Star Destroyers instead of sacrificing countless pilots. I know in The Rise of Skywalker they said in that movie that it was a 1 in a million shot. I mean, I don't know why that would be the case. It wouldn't be that hard to just jump to lightspeed and ram into another ship. But still, the fact that they had to explain it or retcon that decision is another thing, but we'll get into that later. Another reason why the sequels should be redone is that they wasted potentially great characters, and I mean really great. I mean, look at Rey, a descendant of Palpatine. I mean, what more do you have to say? Amazing. Finn, a rogue stormtrooper turned Jedi? Iconic. Kylo Ren, the heir to the Skywalker bloodline, struggling with the dark side and then coming back to the light. Inspirational. And when The Force Awakens first came out, all these characters looked awesome. And besides Kylo, I feel like they were wasted. I loved Rey when she was introduced. I thought Daisy Ridley did a great job, and I was really looking forward to what this character would turn into. But they never gave her much of a character arc after The Force Awakens. I mean, it set things up perfectly, and then she was just naturally amazing at everything. Finn, don't even get me started on what they could have done with Finn. I thought he was going to be the main character, and I mean a lightsaber-wielding stormtrooper, someone who knew the evil that the First Order was, and they just sat him on the sidelines. You know, there was just so much wasted potential with him. And this in turn leads to the final point, which by far was one of the most common things that was said in the poll. They didn't have a plan. There was no plan at all. I feel like JJ had a plan, and episodes 7 and 9 feel like one story. Well, episode 7 feels like the beginning or the start of a really good story, and then 9 feels like he's really just kind of scrambling to pick up the pieces of a shattered timeline. And episode 8 is just lying out there somewhere in the dark. If The Last Jedi stood on its own, and it wasn't connected to any story, then it would be an amazing film. I mean, it's very cinematic, you know, the themes and elements in it are very good, but it is connected to something so much bigger than any one person or movie. This was not a standalone film. This was an episode in the freaking Skywalker saga, and that is the biggest problem. I mean, episode 7, The Force Awakens, was great, and I still love that movie a ton. If the sequels do get remade, I hope they just have JJ pick up right after The Force Awakens. It had so many questions, and it made all of us, like, including me, like, stupid excited to go see The Last Jedi. And then episode 8 just didn't capitalize on any of it, and in fact, it felt like it kind of made it irrelevant. Like, Snoke dying, Rey being a nobody, and Luke just not caring. I feel like JJ would not have gone in that direction, and if he was allowed to do all 3 movies, things would have been drastically different. Honestly, Rian Johnson is a great filmmaker. I love his other stuff. And if they would have just had a meeting or two to talk about the larger plan, then I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided. But, I mean, it's so obvious that didn't take place. It also didn't advance the story. I mean, episode 6 ended with one Jedi, Luke, and episode 9 does as well, with Rey. I mean, they basically just replaced Luke with Rey. And for those reasons, and several others that I won't be getting into, the sequels should be erased from canon and redone. Okay, enough negativity. I honestly hate bashing on the sequels because it just gets me upset all over again. Anyway. Now, why should the sequels remain as canon? Well, they are loved by millions of people. I think about what I would feel, like how incredibly upset I would be if people were calling for the prequels to be erased. I vividly remember the era of prequel hate, and how angry I was whenever someone would point out an obvious flaw or cheesy lines, but those cheesy moments are now loved by the majority of Star Wars fans. The same will be said about those sequels in a few years, especially if the Filoniverse can somehow manage to fix the sequels and make them better. This trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9, is some people's first introduction to Star Wars, just like how the prequels were for me. And I don't think it would be fair to take that away, no matter how many problems there are with them. Besides, there is still so much potential in this era. I mean, look at what the Filoniverse can do. They can bridge the gap, tell the backstory that we never got in the sequels. Not to mention that there are several shows and books that are already tied into these movies, so if they do get erased or retconned, it wouldn't just be the movies that are gone. I am hoping that this era will just keep growing, and that shows like The Mandalorian will be able to tie into the sequel trilogy and make it better. Just keep building on the story that has already been told. Another reason why the sequels should stay is because it would be incredibly difficult to do them over again, especially with the actors and the places that they are. And you know, I mean, so they could hire the new cast, that'd be fairly easy. But the old cast, especially if they're redoing them, they need to have Luke, Leia, and Han play a more prominent role, and I just don't see that working out. Obviously, Mark Hamill would be down because he's great and he loves Star Wars, and whenever Luke Skywalker is mentioned, he's always part of the conversation. But Harrison Ford, who played Han Solo, doesn't want to do any more Star Wars movies, and especially because of the passing of our beloved princess, Carrie Fisher. Logistically, it would be difficult to do, and I don't think we should erase Carrie's last performance. I mean, she was a shining light in the sequels, one of the best characters, and she stayed true to herself as a general and a princess. So yeah, I don't think that they should be erased. I mean, that one reason alone is enough for me to say, like, no, they shouldn't be erased. Not to mention that they are already Star Wars canon. I mean, this seems like the biggest and most obvious reason that they will not or should not be erased. Because they've already been made. I mean, when the EU got erased, I was ticked off. But those books, comics, and, other side stories of Star Wars were not multi-million-dollar movies that were out in the open for the whole world to see. If you wanted more, you had to go out and seek out the EU for yourself. So the fact that the sequel trilogy is already canon is a big indicator, obvious indicator, that they will remain canon. I mean, the mouse isn't going to bend the knee by erasing the sequel trilogy because that would mean that they are admitting fault. And it would show that they could be controlled by the fans. I mean, that'll never happen, no matter how hard we push. Plus, like I said, there are stories that have already been intertwined that are also canon. So it wouldn't be just the sequels that you would have to erase, it would be all of the other books and comics that are already tied into this. Now, one of the most important reasons that they should remain as canon is that it would show it is time to move on. We have to get past all of this stuff as Star Wars fans and start focusing on the positive. I mean, I think the best way for Disney to deal with all the sequel backlash would be for them to make great Star Wars content moving forward. And they're doing that. They've come out with the High Republic, which is actually getting great reviews by the people who have actually read it. They are also coming out with 11 shows in the future, including the already very successful Mandalorian. And Lucasfilm Games has announced that they're back and they're going to be taken to a new golden era of Star Wars video games, which I'm really looking forward to. I mean, really looking at it, we had one bad movie with The Last Jedi. But for the most part, Disney Star Wars has been solid. I mean, Rogue One, Rebels, Episode 7, Solo, the final season of the Clone Wars, and The Mandalorian are all awesome. That is good Star Wars content. So let's focus on that instead of wanting something that will never happen. I mean, I have explained how they can do it, with the whole Filoniverse different timeline thing. But the chances of this happening are incredibly slim, and unless something drastically changes, I don't see it happening in the future at all. At the end of the day, Star Wars is Star Wars. We are all fans of it, and we all love it. I am hoping that no matter what your opinion of the sequels is that we can all just appreciate the fact that that galaxy far, far away is a part of our lives. So, if you hate the sequels, don't hate on the people who enjoy them. Hate the movies, not the fans. And the same goes if you love the sequels. I am all for having a debate on why the story does or does not make sense. I just hope that we can get back to a civilized place where we're not constantly going at each other's throats. And I feel like we're getting there more and more every day. Anyway, I hope this video presented both sides of the argument and leads to discussion. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope that this video presented both sides of the argument and leads to a good and open discussion. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more Star Wars content. And remember to forever be a Star Wars fan.